You ready to do this, Mark?
Yeah, I'm ready to do this, Spence. Punch it, Chewy.
Welcome, super friends, to the Fortress of Nerditude podcast, a safe place to talk about all things in nerd and pop culture. I'm Spencer Stapleton, and my co-pilot tonight is Marc Boucher.
Hello, hello.
We're two nerds that just refuse to grow up. Thank you for joining us. This is episode 138. We release every Thursday morning. You can find us on our website, fortnerd.com. We have links to iTunes, Google Music, Spotify, YouTube, Stitcher, and everywhere podcasts are available. Stop by and relax a while. If you like what you're hearing, hit that subscribe button and get us automatically each and every week. Mark, welcome back. It's been about 3 months since you were on last. How are you doing, my friend?
I'm doing all right, Spence. I'm doing pretty well. I'm glad to be on. Thank you so much for having me. For sure.
Oh, glad to have you. So, what's new in the Boucher household? What are you doing? What are you watching? What are you playing? What's going on with the Good Morning Guys podcast? What's happening?
Well, so things have been kind of crazy for me, especially the past couple of weeks. It kind of took a turn for some not so good stuff, but I'm working through it for sure. And so for those who might not know, both of my biological parents have been in the hospital for different reasons. So unfortunately, my dad was admitted to the hospital probably 2 or 3 weeks ago because he had a really bad staph infection that spread throughout his entire body, and so he's been basically not able to move any of his body. Basically, he can't move his arms, his legs, anything like that. So just learning how to eat again and how to go to the bathroom and stuff like that has been a huge task for him. And then on top of that, he had a heart attack. So it was kind of rough the past couple of weeks, but he's heading in the right direction now. But he's got a long road ahead because he's got a lot of physical therapy stuff going on, and that's going to take months and months to be able to get back to where he was. But God's good, and he's taking care of my family, and then my mom's in the hospital. Unfortunately, she's probably going to have to be admitted to a nursing home just because she can't take care of herself anymore. So it's been rough dealing with that kind of stuff now that my parents are getting older and dealing with these kind of things. But it's part of life, and you just do what you can to help your family as much as possible.
So just so the super friends know, I have known about this for a while. So if I'm not saying oh, Mark, I'm really sorry, I don't think I'm being insensitive to Mark's issues right now. Mark and I are good friends. I've known about this for a while. But I do want to say though, Mark, I have been keeping you and your family in our prayers consistently because I lost my father about 18 years ago. I mean, it was tragic. It was a car accident. It was completely unexpected.
Oh, goodness.
But I have a very good understanding of what it's like to have tragedy, have, unexpected things happen. And so obviously your dad getting the staph infection and then having a heart attack, you weren't planning on any of that. That wasn't a thing you knew was going to happen.
Right.
And so I know it can be trying not only on the individual that it's happening to, but the family members and the loved ones, and it affects people differently. And so I just want you to know, and I'll say it again because I know you and I have talked, but your family's in our prayers, you're in our prayers, your mom and your dad are in our prayers, and hoping that things will improve and at least be as good as they possibly can be.
Yeah, no, I certainly appreciate that, Spencer. I really do. I appreciate everybody's prayers, and God's taking care of it. And, my dad's heading in the right direction, and my mom's going to get the care that she needs for sure, which is a positive in my opinion.
Yeah.
But other than that, it's basically been the status quo of, for those who may not know, I'm a worship and youth leader at my church. So, just doing the whole ministry thing. About to take the kids to a big theme park here in Virginia this coming weekend. So that's going to be a big trip. Pretty excited about that.
Nice.
Yeah, so... and then on the gaming front, you may be familiar with a little old game called Apex Legends.
I've heard of it.
Just in passing. But yeah, I have been playing the absolute mess out of that game. That is literally all I have played pretty much since the game came out. I've always been into battle royale type games, but I've never really been super good at them. And this is the first battle royale game that I feel like I can hold my own in the game and actually contribute. Am I the best player? No. But I still have a lot of fun with it, and I feel like I can actually contribute to the team, whether it be, aiding squad mates or getting kills and damage, all that kind of stuff. So, yeah, I'm having a lot of fun with it. And I think the new update with all the challenges and stuff like that has been a great refresh to it. I was actually listening to the episode, I think it was last week with you and Patrick.
Yeah, Pat and I.
Yeah, I was actually listening to it on the way home from church tonight. And I couldn't agree with you guys more. And it's led to some pretty late nights for me.
Right.
And truth be told, go ahead.
We got off that episode, and it was maybe 11:30 my time, so that's 1:30 his time. Yeah, we jumped on and we played for a good hour.
Oh goodness!
It was a late night.
Yeah, truth be told, I was late to coming to record the podcast because I was playing Apex with Patrick, and we ended up getting a win, so that was awesome.
Ah, man, it's a good way to finish, right?
Yep.
Nice.
But that's pretty much it on my end. Just enjoying the summer and playing a lot of Apex.
What's the temperature like in Virginia right now? Is it pretty warm or is it just kind of mild?
Absolutely. It's in the 90s. And it's humid and nasty and hot. Truth be told, I am not a fan of the hot weather. I try to enjoy it as much as I can. But I am from New England originally, so I am very much I'm a fan of the cold. I like, the fall and the winter. Everybody talks about I can't stand shoveling snow and all this kind of stuff. I love the snow and I love the cold weather, all that kind of stuff. So
see,
go ahead.
It's hot here too. Today was 95 degrees.
Mm-hmm.
And I don't mind the heat, but I've been out walking a lot the last, about year and a half or so.
Mm-hmm.
And when I take these little breaks or on my lunch break at work and I go and I walk for half an hour, 40 minutes, and then I come back into the office, I'm dripping with sweat. It is nasty. It's just, I'm doing it and I'm staying healthy, but it's man, just blah. I don't necessarily like the cold. I'd like to move to San Diego. Truth be told, Mark, San Diego, 70, 75 degrees year-round.
Oh, yeah.
That sounds like heaven.
Yeah.
It just sounds amazing.
I'd be okay with that. But it's funny enough, the trip that I just was telling you about that I'm taking the youth group on, it's supposed to be 100 degrees outside.
Ooh.
And completely sunny, no cloud cover type stuff. So I'm gonna have to really stay hydrated. And of course, you could probably tell I'm super pasty lily white, and so that's not gonna be a fun time for me.
Yeah, but Mark, you don't look like you've seen sun much lately. That's true. That's true.
Yeah. So.
Interesting. Well, man, seriously though, stay safe, stay, hydrated, stay cool. Don't get, don't.
Just don't.
Just don't. Well, it's you talked about Apex Legends. I mean, I've been playing the mess out of Apex Legends. I started 2 weeks before the start of season 2. So I mean, I started like the third week of June, basically, somewhere right around there.
Yeah.
And I've been playing the mess out of it. I'm up to like level 55 now. I think on my battle pass I just hit 26.
Nice.
I'm averaging about 12 levels a week right now in the battle pass. But I talked to Patrick the other night, and we were kind of talking about it because he consistently stays like 2 or 3 levels ahead of me at the end of each week. And he said, here's my strategy. He says, I try to grind out the daily challenges and then the weekly challenges that give you the experience, like the 3,000 experience or 6,000 experience. He says, I try to do all those first, then do the ones that say like, hey, if you complete this, you get a whole battle pass level. You complete this one, you get a whole battle pass level. He said, because eventually it's like 9,000 at the start of the week, it's 9,000 to get the one battle pass level. And then you have to do like 18,000, and then it gets up to where each one then takes 54,000 experience.
Oh yeah.
And he says if you do all the experience ones and you get it to where it's 54,000, where it slows down, he says then you go back and you do the things like land in this place 4 times and get a battle pass level, or get knockdowns with this gun this many times, get a battle pass level. So I'm going to try it that way this week and see if that actually grinds me out more, because I don't know if when you hit a battle pass level for like completing one of those tasks, if it jumps you up a battle pass level and then it resets your experience counter to the next higher level.
Yeah,
that
I
was
don't know.
Pat's belief. So I'm trying to watch that and see.
Sure. Absolutely. And he's got such a methodical mind. I'm not surprised at all he thought about that. That's hilarious.
Yep. So it's like, okay. But I figure even if I'm averaging 12 levels a week, completing dailies and the weekly challenges and everything, I'm still going to cap this thing out before the season's done.
Oh, yeah. And the awesome thing about it is, like, if you cap out, you basically pay for the next battle pass.
Yep.
You don't even have to put any more money because they give you Apex coins with, jumping up in the battle pass. Now, it kind of frustrated me because I didn't get to finish. I didn't get to cap for season 1, and I was at 900 coins, and the thing is 950, and I was like, no! So I had to spend money. I was like, oh.
Yep.
But it's all good.
Yeah, you had to drop like $10 in order to just make up for like the 50 coins you were short.
I was so frustrated, but with all the fun that I get out of that game, I'm totally fine with giving them money. Just because I get so much free out of it that it's worth it to me for sure.
Yeah, I agree. So I've been playing Apex Legends, and then I had this idea, and I've had this idea for a little while, and I've kind of thought about doing it, but I kind of hadn't pulled the trigger, and I was talking to our good friend Ed Placencia, and he streams on Twitch.
Yeah.
And I was talking to him, I'm like, man, I've been thinking about maybe trying that, I think that'd be fun, because personally, up until I started playing Apex, I found that like my gaming time has just dropped way down. Not that I don't have time to game, but that when I have free time, it's, I've done exercising, I've spent time with my kids, and then I have some free time in the evenings. It's either I can game for a little while, or I can watch a TV show with my wife, or a movie, or I can do this, that, and the other. And I've got a list of things that I can do. And just lately I haven't been playing a lot of games.
Sure.
So I said, okay, you know what? I'm going to play games. I'm going to start streaming on Twitch. And so I started streaming on Twitch this week. So
nice.
I'm on Twitch TV. It's S Stapleton 79. So S for Spencer, Stapleton, my last name, 79.
I think I'm following you. I'm pretty sure.
I think you are, but I want to say this, Super Friends. So I'm trying to do this thing where I become a Twitch affiliate. When I become a Twitch affiliate, then basically, if people want to donate bits to me, that gives me a little bit of money. It also opens up some other things that I can do as far as a Twitch streamer and make it a little more interactive experience. And so I've just started this week. I've streamed every day for like the last 5 days, and I've only been streaming Apex so far. But Super Friends, if you're listening to this, do me a big favor. I would really appreciate it. Go to twitch.tv. If you have an account, give me a follow. If you don't have an account, just put in an email, go through the little setup, and then find sstapleton79 and give me a follow. When I get to 50 followers, I'm going to have all the other criteria, and I will become a Twitch affiliate. And then I can kind of start that. So, like I said, I'm close. I think I'm at 31 followers, and I need to hit 50. So I only need 19 of you. But I'm asking all of you that listen to go ahead and do that for me.
Yeah, and share on the socials too. Like if you've got Twitter or Facebook, plug Spencer's Twitch stream. I'm going to do it. So
I appreciate that, Mark.
Yeah.
So what I'm thinking is that I'm trying to narrow down my schedule to figure out if I stream consistently at the same times. And I'm going to be streaming in the evenings, usually after I get my kids to bed.
Right.
That way I don't have to have my wife constantly be the one putting my kids to bed.
Sure.
So I'm getting my schedule narrowed down so I can be consistent. But I think I'm going to stream a little bit of Apex, and then I think I'm also going to start streaming Marvel's Spider-Man, which I have not played yet.
Nice.
And I've heard nothing but great stuff about it.
Absolutely.
And so I want to. And then I'm also thinking that I might do something where I do like a Friday night where I stream like an old Final Fantasy game.
Okay.
And call it like Friday Night Final Fantasy or something.
Mm-hmm.
And just because I've been wanting to go back and play Final Fantasy VII. I've got it on the PS4.
Yeah.
And I want to play it again before the new one comes out. I think that would be fun to do.
Oh, yeah. Sure.
And it's like, if I played it just a little bit every week, for 3-4 hours and played it like, that would be something fun I could do to kind of break up the other stuff that I would be playing and streaming.
Mm-hmm.
So, trying to figure all that out. And Prime Day was the other day, yesterday on Monday, and I was looking at an Elgato so that I could be streaming or capturing with that. And I went back and forth. I went, well, I'm streaming from my PS4 and it has the ability to do that. Do I really want to drop $120? And I decided to wait.
Yeah.
I figure kind of see how it goes, get my feet underneath me a little bit, become an affiliate, and then, go from there. But the nice thing is those Elgato capture things is like I could plug in the NES Mini Classic or the SNES Mini Classic or a PS1 Classic that I did not pick up and probably won't ever.
Mm-hmm.
But I have the option. But I can plug in some other stuff into it. And so I could play older games and I could stream those.
Sure.
I could stream my Switch. I think I eventually will get there, but not right away.
Yeah, I mean, if you see like Ed and what he does, he's basically just doing what's built into the Xbox One or the PS4. He's not using OBS or anything like that. He doesn't have an Elgato. It's just all what's in there. So, and he's built up a pretty strong following. Yeah. So I think if you just, find your footing, you don't have to go crazy with it just yet, and then just build slowly. I think it'll be great. I think you'll do just fine.
Yeah, I think that's the plan. But mostly it's just I'm having fun with it.
Yeah.
And it gives me something extra to do while I'm going to be playing video games. And I mean, Mark, you know me. I like to talk, and so that just works out well. It'll be easy to easy to interact and talk with people. So go give me a follow, Super Friends. sstapleton79 on Twitch. Other than that, my wife and I have been watching Stranger Things season 3.
Yes.
We're about halfway through it now.
Mm-hmm.
This is the longest it's ever taken us to do a Stranger Things. And partially because there's been a lot of nights where by the time we're all both of us are done with our stuff we're doing and all the things are wrapped up, it's like 11 o'clock at night. And I was like, do you want to turn on Stranger Things? And she's like, it's too late. She does not like watching scary or suspenseful things right before she goes to bed.
Oh, yeah.
So I have a strong feeling we'll probably finish it this upcoming week and weekend.
Nice. Okay.
I always thought I was going to stream all 8 straight, but just, the holidays and everything, it just didn't quite happen.
I feel so ashamed because I'm a big Stranger Things fan. My wife and I love the show. We have only watched the first episode of season 3. We just, with all the stuff going on with my dad and all that kind of stuff, and it's very similar to your situation. By the end of the day, with all the stuff that we have to do, and then, I play a lot of Apex. She likes to just chill out and, just kind of, because she's very introverted, so she just needs her kind of recharge time. And so, not that we don't spend time together, of course, but, by the time all that happens, we just haven't had the time. But, I mean, we'll make the time for it, but I just feel so ashamed because usually I'm like you. I've binged the entire thing.
Yeah. I don't know what's going on. Yeah.
Got to remedy that.
Yeah, what are you going to do? Let's see. I also went out and saw Spider-Man Far From Home, and we're going to talk about that tonight.
Mm-hmm.
I'm trying to think what else. Just, just the normal stuff, work and the kids. My kids haven't been going to daycare for the last week because our daycare closed. The lady moved homes. She bought a different home. Actually, it's closer to us, which is great.
Nice.
But she had to move. Then now she's got to, reopen and do all of her certifications and have, the state come and check out the new house and make sure everything's okay. And so my mom and her husband have been watching the kids this last week, which has been really great for my kids because I get to spend a lot of good time with my mom. Mm-hmm. Except my mom and her husband, they've been taking them to splash pads and this fun center that's got bouncy houses and foam pits to jump into and do flips and stuff and bumper cars and the zoo and all these things, which is great. These are things kids should experience and have a ton of fun doing during summer break. But my wife and I don't usually do all these things because we both work and they go to daycare. So they're being spoiled to death. And my little son Jackson, my youngest, he came up to me and says, "Daddy, we were playing at the splash pad and we were there so long. Grandpa Roger had to go to Wendy's and get us chicken nuggets. Can we do that again?" I was like, "The splash pad?" He's like, "No, Wendy's." I'm like, "Not in the middle of the day." I was like, Daddy and Mommy work and you get fed at daycare. He's like, "Oh," and it was so sad, just turned and kind of moped and walked away. I was like, "Oh, you eat, you get fed. Are we really complaining about whatever?"
That's life, kid.
Seriously. But anyway, it has been good. And I'm very, very grateful that my mother was willing to kind of watch the boys and help us out kind of through this time. So that worked out well.
Awesome.
But that's about all I got, Mark. What do you say? Should we kill some Bothans and find out if there's any rebel intelligence we can get from their dead carcasses?
Yeah, shout-outs to them Bothans taking one for the team.
I always have to let you know, many Bothans died to bring us this information.
Rest in peace, you Bothans.
All right, Mark, we are into Rebel Intelligence. What do you have for me this week?
All right, so first and foremost, this is a hilarious story. So basically, I believe you're familiar with a little movie called Avengers Endgame. I'm sure you've heard of it, right?
Heard of it. Yes.
So one of the actors in the movie Avengers Endgame, she played, and I guess spoiler warning for anybody who hasn't seen it yet. And if you haven't seen it, what are you doing with your life? The actress who plays the older Cassie Lang, because in the movie there's a 5-year time jump.
Yeah, Ant-Man's daughter. Yep.
Yep, Ant-Man's daughter. So obviously, if you've seen Ant-Man and the Wasp, Scott Lang gets stuck in the quantum realm, and once he actually escapes, thanks to a rat, he gets let out, and it turns out it's been 5 years. So his daughter is much older, and so her name is Emma Furman. She plays the older version of his daughter. She was being interviewed by a website I frequent. It's called comicbook.com.
Yep.
So she posted what she thought she was posting, like a super innocent picture on Instagram. It was just a picture of a sunset. No big deal. Everybody on Instagram posts pictures of things like sunsets and stuff like that. But it was a big deal for somebody who's in the movie Avengers Endgame, because she explains that she was in Atlanta filming, and she took the picture, posted it on Instagram, and she tagged the location. Now, obviously, people knew that she was going to be in the movie, and so she got in trouble with the head of security, and he was talking to her about the fact that she can't post pictures of like that. And she's like, well, I wasn't going to say I was on the set of Endgame or anything like that. And I guess the head of security was like, no, we understand. You're not the first person we had to talk to about this today. But he said he had people calling him all day trying to find out where she was going to be filming. And so
it's crazy.
People are trying to really we're trying to scope it out, trying to, try to find, where they were filming, what they were doing, trying to find the big scoop, trying to find some, secrets about that. And, Marvel tries to be really, really hush-hush as much as possible to avoid things getting leaked. Unfortunately, it doesn't always work out that way. Stuff gets leaked all the time. You can't hide everything. But I just thought it's hilarious that she got in trouble for posting a picture of a sunset in Atlanta, Georgia.
I also think it's funny that the head of security said, like, you're not the first person we've had to talk to today. Like, we've had to talk to multiple actors today about this sort of thing. That's what cracks me up about that.
I'm just not sure what kind of information they would have gotten out of, we're filming in Atlanta, Georgia. Like, who cares?
I guess it depends. So I look at it from, like, if this was taken here, where I live, and let's say let's reverse this a little bit. Let's say I'm the actor or actress, right? And I take a picture and I geotag it, like, Salt Lake City, Utah. Well, people from this area, depending if I'm taking a picture of like a sunset or a sunrise over the mountains, would be able to look at that and say, oh, this is the Wasatch Mountain Range. That is, right by like Big Cottonwood Canyon. And then they'd be able to make some guesses saying, okay, where he's taking this from, if there's no zoom, he's probably, somewhere in kind of the middle of the valley, and they could get a close approximation because of landmarks or something in the shot, in the picture. And then people could start sleuthing out, going, and then, get on Reddit, get on Twitter, the whole kind of crowdsource it and then start talking about it. And then someone eventually would say, yeah, man, I saw a whole bunch of trailers parked over by the Valley Fair Mall, blah, blah, blah. And then the next thing you know, the shooting that's being taken place at, like, Valley Fair Mall or whatever would just be overrun with people, all because of a simple picture that was posted and the whole mentality of like this, let's crowdsource this, let's figure this out. So like, I get why they want to be cautious. I don't know what Atlanta looks like. I don't know if there's buildings in the shot, or whatever it was, but people could potentially, especially locals, would be able to help figure some of that stuff out, maybe.
Yeah, I guess that's true. I didn't really think about it that way. If you have particular landmarks or whatever in the picture of the sunset, yeah, I guess that makes sense. But I just thought it was funny that like this whole article makes me think of, I don't know if you saw the recent things right after Avengers Endgame came out, where the big actors like Chris Pratt and Robert Downey Jr. and all those guys, they were specifically told by Marvel, do not take any video or pictures while we are filming. And sure enough, all of them took video.
Right.
And all of them
I think Chris Pratt was the one that like had the big one that like showed all those people in like that one shot where he kind of rotated around 360.
Yep.
Yeah.
And they're like, nope, we don't care. Of course, I mean, what are they going to do? Fire you?
Well, the other thing is too, those were released of like, with the green screen and all that, like, but it was done after the movie had released.
Yeah, that's true.
So it's kind of like, okay, maybe they said don't do this, but this kind of was leaked, Anyway.
Yeah, what are they going to do at that point?
What are they going to do? So Mark, were you a Game of Thrones guy? Did you watch Game of Thrones on HBO? Did you get into that at all?
No, I have never read the books. I don't really watch the show. I hear about it all the time and have a general understanding of what the show is about, but that's about it.
So, of course, then you would have heard a little bit about this, but obviously this show was based on a series of books. It's called a Song of Ice and Fire. That's the series. Mm-hmm. And George R.R. Martin's written 5 of those books. Mm-hmm. And famously, he has said, that he writes at his own pace. He's doing this. But as the show continued to progress, they were getting caught up to where the books were. And he said that he felt a tremendous amount of pressure for years as the show was catching up to him, that, he was desperately writing, trying to stay ahead of the show. And his editors would say, well, if you can get us something to it now, we can rush it so it can get out into the bookstores, before this next season. Well, obviously, book 6 of a proposed 7-book series has still not come out. And the show is over. And so anyone who reads the books knows that it's going to, there's going to be certain things that are going to be similar, but it's also going to be longer. However, now George R.R. Martin is basically saying, like, he feels good that the show's over because it's taken the pressure off him, that he wants to finish it, but he wants to do it right, and he wants to make sure he takes his time so that it's just the way he wants it to, which all sounds great. That all sounds fine, except his last book, A Dance with Dragons, came out in 2011. It's 2019. It's been 8 years since the last book came out, and now he's saying, like, hey, I feel like the pressure's off me. It'll be done when it's done, that sort of thing. And it's like, okay, well,
10 more years.
Yeah, how much longer does that mean? Because we're waiting on book 6, and then there's going to be another book after that. So, like, are we really going to be finishing, like, the 7th book, like, 20 years from now? I mean, what does that timetable look like? And I get it. I do really understand. He says the pressure's off, and I know he's done other things, and he wrote a bunch for the show, and there's HBO's planning to do kind of a prequel, further back in the history of Westeros, another show based off his world, and I'm sure he's going to be involved in that. But it is one of those things where it's like, okay, you are an author, though. You've started this series. I get that you're taking your time and doing it right, but at some point, you gotta have to finish. Otherwise, you get into a scenario where either you alienate a whole bunch of your fan base, or people just forget about it and they just kind of move on.
Yeah.
And especially when the show was so big and popular, I really wish he would have released the 6th book then, because I felt like he could have got a lot more of a pool of people interested in reading his books that had never maybe before been interested. And the release of a new book, because then they could have been like, oh, well, I can read this, and so I can kind of know what's going to happen before the show does it, and people could have got into it. But right now, it sounds like George R.R. Martin's just basically saying, like, yeah, whatever, it'll be done when I finish it, and who knows when that'll be.
There just comes a certain point. I understand that books are, an art form, and these things take time to cook, and you want to make sure it's right, and a masterpiece, and all that kind of fun stuff. But there comes a point where you're kind of dragging your feet. And it's like, okay, you're letting it cook for a little too long. And I totally understand what you're saying. Like, it sounds to me like he's like, okay, pressure's off, meaning like, oh, okay, so now I don't have to push.
Right.
He's kind of being, lazy about it. At least it feels that way. Obviously, I'm not an author. He's had some very successful books. So he knows what he's doing, but there just comes a point where it's like, okay, come on, got to make a deadline here for sure. And it was funny because I was watching an interview one time. It was between George R.R. Martin and Stephen King. And one of the questions that George R.R. Martin ended up asking Stephen King, and it sounded like it was kind of in jest, but I'm sure there was some ounce of seriousness to it. He asked Stephen King, he said, "How do you write books so fast?" And so I was like, well, that's kind of a picture of where George R.R. Martin is. And, just the fact that the show's over, and if he waits too long, it's just going to lose all relevance. It's not going to matter. Like, oh, yeah, like Game of Thrones crap. Yeah, whatever.
Yeah, it'll lose steam. I agree. What else do you have for us, Mark?
So The Mandalorian's getting a second season. Which
before the first season's even aired.
So obviously Disney has a little bit of confidence in this show, which I totally don't blame them because, it's Jon Favreau and it's Star Wars. Yep. So he kind of hasn't really, steered us wrong in other things that he's done as a director. So, but in any case, he was on Jimmy Kimmel Live the other night. And he was actually talking about The Lion King, which, at time of recording, comes out Thursday. So that's exciting. But in any case, he was talking about The Mandalorian after talking about The Lion King. And he mentioned that, obviously they had just finished the first season. And it's going to be coming up in the fall on the Disney Plus streaming service. And he just happened to drop, oh yeah, I'm actually writing part of the second season right now. And it's like, oh, so there's a second season. Right. So that definitely shows that Disney not only has confidence in Jon Favreau's overall vision for the series, but the fact that what they've seen of the first season, tells them, hey, this is going to be good. We have confidence in this. Let's go ahead and greenlight a second season. And the article points out for sure, especially they're talking about, the end of this year, The Rise of Skywalker is coming out, and the fact that after this, we're going to have a pretty decent hiatus of Star Wars movies. Right. They're closing out the Skywalker saga and all that. So this is kind of a nice, thing to keep us in that Star Wars universe while those movies go away. And I'm certainly excited about what Favreau's doing with The Mandalorian, and exciting that Disney is confident in it, for sure.
Well, I mean, it's their own streaming service. They're going to go all in on it, right? I mean, they kind of have to. So This doesn't really surprise me. But I would have thought we would hear like, hey, on day one when it, Disney Plus starts streaming and The Mandalorian's available, I would expect to have heard it like on maybe right then and saying like, hey, and we've greenlit it for a second season. The day one downloads are 1 gazillion, bazillion, kajillion or something like that. Mm-hmm. Some crazy number. But they're already saying like, no, this, right in second season, which tells me we may even hear word of a third season shortly after the first season comes out. That would not surprise me either. But I'm excited for it. It looks good. It's got a great cast. It's going to be on that Disney Plus. Just when can we sign up for Disney Plus? That's all I want to know. I know it comes out November 11th, but I mean, they got to start taking pre-signups at some point, I would think.
Yeah, they actually put out the full list of everything that will be on Disney Plus day one, and just seeing obviously all the original content, but also just a whole huge library of all the Star Wars movies and Disney movies, and I'm like, this is so going to be worth it for sure. So I'm excited for it for sure.
Yeah, me too. Something else, Mark, that I'm excited about. Amazon's going to be doing a Lord of the Rings based show. We know this. They've talked about it. It's going to be, hitting their Prime Video. But what's interesting to me is that we know that it's probably going to take place, a lot of it prior to the events of the Lord of the Rings. Mm-hmm. Well, what's really interesting is there is a Chinese developer, Leiyu Technologies, that was going to be developing a MMO RPG, so a massive multiplayer online role-playing game based in Middle-earth.
Mm-hmm.
Well, this is supposed to take place long before the events of the Tolkien books. And Amazon is actually getting involved in this. It's been officially announced that it's Amazon's game studio division, which basically was reorganized a little bit ago. A lot of the titles were canceled. There was layoffs in that department. But they are partnering with the Leiyu's California-based division of Athlon Games, and they're going to start helping work on this Lord of the Rings MMO game. And they're saying that Amazon is directly going to be involved in development of the game. They're also going to be responsible for marketing and publishing the title outside of China. So Leiyu Technologies will do all the marketing and publishing in China, but everywhere else, Amazon's going to be doing this. So to me, what this sounds like, this sounds like Amazon is really trying to say Game of Thrones was huge. We're going to go back to the granddaddy of all high fantasy, Lord of the Rings. We're going to have this expansive TV series that's going to be set during the Second Age of Middle-earth's history. And on top of that, we are also going to be publishing and directly involved with the making of this MMORPG that we're also going to be pushing through our services. It just sounds to me like they are doubling down on J.R.R. Tolkien.
Oh yeah, absolutely. They're ready to cash in on that Thrones money and go back to Lord of the Rings. Now I wonder if they're gonna like sort of tie in, you know, so it's like a lot of the same characters that you see on the TV show will be in the video game, and
I would assume so.
Yeah, and basically, you know, one will kind of complement the other, like as in like things that are going on the show may, I don't know, affect the actual game and all that kind of stuff. Kind of like, oh, I'm trying to think of that one TV show that was also a video game.
Smash TV?
It wasn't Smash TV. That's a good one. Not the one I'm thinking of.
Oh, okay.
Oh, shoot. It's pretty recent.
Super Mario Brothers.
Oh, gross.
Do the Mario. Swing your hands from side to side.
No.
It's the Super Mario Brothers Super Show. Da 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 da. Do the Mario. Anyway.
No. Shoot, I wish I could remember. But it was basically like, you know, it would play out on the TV show, and then the events from the TV show would play out into the game. So I don't know if it's going to be that type of a thing, or maybe it's just, you know, characters from the show. It's entirely standalone thing.
Yeah, I don't know. I don't know.
But,
well, anyway, we'll see when Amazon releases it. I'm not going to be shocked if I find out that this game is being released like the exact same time that the TV show gets released on Amazon.
Yeah, it's a great business move for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it makes sense. That's the last thing I had for Rebel Intelligence. Did you have anything else, Mark?
No, I think I'm covered.
Okay, so let's move on. So last week, I did have Patrick Novosel on the podcast, and we did talk about Apex Legends. And our question of the week was, when you're playing video games and you're playing like online video games, do you prefer voice communication with headsets, or do you prefer like the in-game like ping system? And in Apex, the ping system, you can ping locations, you can ping weapons and ammo and open doors, closed doors, all that sort of stuff. You can ping where the enemies are. So the question is, do you prefer a ping system or some sort of a in-game built-in alert system, or do you prefer voice chat? Mark, how do you feel about that? Where are you at?
So basically, here's my thinking behind it. And first of all, the ping system for Apex, genius, absolutely genius,
genius.
And I'll tell you, it's because the only time I really like actually using voice communication is if I'm with friends. If I'm squatting up with you and Patrick or Sheldor or anybody in that type of a community, friends of mine, I'm totally cool with getting on voice chat, in a party chat and talking that way and communicating. But if it's randoms, people that I don't know in whatever part of the world, sometimes you get some good ones. Sometimes you get some really rude and crude people. And so I think with random people, for the most part, I stick to the ping system. Just because it eliminates that rude and crude thing, and it just focuses in on the important things in the actual game. So yeah, that's what I would say. Ping if it's randos, and voice chat if it's friends.
Yep, that's kind of where I came out, and Patrick too. But let's go over to some of the super friends. We've got Peter Christensen. He says, "Dear nerds, sure is funny that Gwyneth Paltrow forgets her co-stars, but I'm sympathetic given how much trouble I have remembering things. I'm 10 years younger than her, and I can't even name all the people that work in the same room as me at work. She has been in big headline movies, she's been a big headline movie star for decades, and she also runs a questionable business, so she should be forgiven for forgetting young and up-and-comers. If you're excited about the live-action Mulan breaking records in China, consider that Coco became the highest-grossing movie in Mexican film history." And then he says, "Glad you guys enjoyed your video game chat. Cheers, Peter Christensen." Peter's not a gamer at all. It is interesting, though. That is true. And I was extremely excited to see that Coco broke all these records in Mexico for films. I did think that was good. Mm-hmm. Going over to Twitter, Rich Turpin, at TurpinRich, says, "Headset all the way. I don't like pings that much."
Okay.
I think that's... I mean, there has been other games that have tried to do some sort of alert system or some sort of message system, but it always felt like you had to dig through a bunch of menus. Mm-hmm. And so I could see how you might prefer headsets in those types of cases.
Sure.
Splig at Dopalicious says, "Headset in general, but Apex pings need to be in every game. Sorry,
Absolutely.
pal, I don't know which building is Grandma's house. And over there isn't very specific." I love that response because I do remember playing in, I think it was Halo 3 way back in the day, and people would say, "Oh, you got to go over to the bunker, or you got to go over to this or to that." And it's like, "What is this?" And they're like, "Oh, it's this building over here." They'd show you. I'm like, "Oh, I always called it this because that's the actual name in the game for it," and or whatever. And so saying, "I don't know which building is Grandma's house." It's like, mm-hmm. Yeah, I know that pain because, people say, go to Grandma's house, go to Grandma's house. And you're like, there's 17 houses in front of me. Which one's Grandma's house? Is there a little old lady baking cookies that's on the porch? I mean, I don't know.
Yeah, not everybody's good at call outs. If you're not, a constant competitive type person, you may not be able to communicate clearly. So yeah, pinging does that work for you.
Yep, I agree. Burnaby Butterteeth at Dantes_Belmont. And by the way, Burnaby, I love the fact that I gave you that nickname Burnaby Butterteeth and you kept it.
We talked about that on the podcast on Good Morning Guys this week. I was like,
Did you?
What is going? Ugh, that sounds so weird.
So real quick, he was on the stream, I think last Friday, for Ed Placencia, and I was in there, and he was saying something about he just got back from the dentist and his teeth were super super smooth, and I was like, smooth as butter, but hopefully not the color of butter, and then someone said oh, butter teeth, that just sounds nasty, and then I was like, Burnaby butter teeth. And then a couple other people was like, "No, that's just wrong." And I was like, "No, I like that, Burnaby Butterteeth." And then Ed was laughing, and Ed got a huge kick out of it. And so that's pretty soon, awesome. I was like, Burnaby, you must change all your names to Burnaby Butterteeth. And next thing you know, boom, his Discord name, his Twitter name, like all over the place changed to Bernabe Butterteeth.
Nice.
And I just got a huge kick out of it. But let's get to his answer. He says, hardly ever play online multiplayer. Headset with friends is more for the fun of it, in my honest opinion.
Yeah.
Haven't and won't play Apex, so I can't say about the ping pong system.
The ping pong system.
Ping pong system. Because I need to tell you something, Mark, so let me hit a little white ball over to you with a little note on it. Ping pong system. I like that.
Love it.
Grinny at the real Grinny says, pings are great for pubbies and times you don't have an all-English speaking team. I prefer an actual headset and VoIP, local in-game radio, for even more fun, because it's more personable. It's enjoyable to be talking with people. And that is something I also do love about the ping system in Apex. Mm-hmm. I've jumped into games with people that have been speaking French and Spanish.
Ooh.
I don't speak either of those.
No.
And so I'm like, ping over here for an enemy, ping over here for an open crate, ping over here for let's go explore, blah, blah, blah. And that's like a universal language that they can see. Mm-hmm. And in their game, it would translate, so if I pinged it and it said open door here, it would translate that into Spanish because they're listening to it in a Spanish language. And so I don't have to worry about that.
Right.
And if they ping something, it just pings it for me because my language is set to English in English. And that is a perfect example that Grinny brings up, is that if you don't have an all-English speaking team, the ping system is amazing.
Mm-hmm. Genius.
So, it is genius. But that's all the answers we got this week. Thank you so much, Super Friends, for your taking your time out of your week to answer the question. I greatly, greatly appreciate it. Thank you so, so much. Mark, Super Friends are out there. They're listening to the podcast, but what can they do this week to help the podcast out?
I've heard it on the street that a good review on iTunes is pretty helpful for podcasts, especially yours. So I would say go give Spence a review for Fort of Nerd on iTunes. It goes a long way to help.
I agree. I think that's a good idea. Also, tell your friends. That also is a great thing you can do.
Word of mouth. Yep.
Yeah, it can't hurt. That's all I'm saying. It can't hurt.
Nope.
All right, Mark. So you and I wanted to talk about Spider-Man Far From Home. Did you see this movie opening weekend, or did you wait a little bit?
See, here's the weird thing. We say opening weekend. It opened at such a weird time.
Like on a Tuesday, yeah.
Yeah, which I totally get why. It's because of the 4th of July. And that whole holiday weekend is just kind of weird to have it released then. So I actually went on opening weekend. We went on on Saturday. It came out that Tuesday before, which honestly is the longest that I've waited to probably go see a Marvel movie, just because we couldn't make it work in terms of seeing it at the right time, and plus the holiday and all that kind of stuff. So yeah, I saw it that following Saturday, but I wonder why they picked that weekend. I know Lion King comes out this week, so I don't know if they were trying to have that step on that too much.
Probably.
Yeah.
Probably is my guess. I saw it, I want to say I saw it like maybe 3 or 4 days. No, about a week later. I think I saw it about a week after it released, because it did release on a Tuesday. I think I saw it the following Wednesday.
Okay.
So I wanted to go see it right away, but like it was that huge, 4th of July weekend, and I had family in town, and this, that, and the other, and all this stuff going on, and so it wasn't expedient for me to get to the theater to see it right away.
Yeah.
So I want to talk about a couple things, and then we'll kind of toss down the spoiler warning, and then we can talk about some of the plot and some of the interesting things there. Obviously, Spider-Man Far From Home is a sequel to Spider-Man Homecoming, and it takes place right after Avengers Endgame. So it takes place maybe, I think, like 10 months after Avengers Endgame.
Yep.
So just kind of put it into place. But what's interesting to me, and I was doing some looking around, obviously, they started talking about doing a sequel to Spider-Man right after Homecoming came out because Homecoming was such a good movie and did so well. But there was some interesting issues that came up. So one of the things is the marketing for this movie. So, and we can talk about this because it's not going to spoil this movie, but obviously, if you watched Avengers Infinity War, which was the first of the two, two-parter Avengers movies most recently, at the end of that movie, Spider-Man dies.
Yeah.
And what's interesting is that Sony, which you got to remember, we're in this interesting place with Spider-Man because Sony owns the rights to produce Spider-Man films. But back in like 2014, they came back to Marvel and they said like, hey, because Sony's just really struggling with its superhero movies.
Absolutely.
And so they came back to Marvel and the MCU, and the MCU said like, we'll help you write these things. We'll recast. We'll do all this. It'll still be technically a Sony movie, but we're going to put all of our magic on it. But vice versa, and we'll cross over some characters, but vice versa, that gives us the ability to put him in completely MCU movies. Hence Captain America, Civil War, and Avengers Endgame, and Infinity War, and stuff like that. So now that I've relayed kind of the groundwork, just to remind everyone kind of where we're at. Sony was in this interesting place where they were going to have to either market this movie only 2 months before its release, because if they started marketing ahead of time, they would obviously know that Spider-Man who dies in Infinity War is somehow going to be brought back, which would kind of help ruin Avengers Endgame. Or they were going to have to do some sort of thing where they kind of suggested that this Spider-Man is only kind of in the Spider-Man universe, and this maybe took place at a different time period. And so they were like really, like, Sony really was pushing on Marvel, saying like, we're going to start, doing marketing for this. And Marvel was trying to work with them to like figure out like, okay, how can we do this? And so if you remember, Mark, the trailers for this, they really try to go out of their way to make sure there's nothing that's shown that will give you a frame of reference as to what time period this takes place in.
Right.
Those first trailers until Endgame, Avengers Endgame happened, then they showed some other stuff. But like, obviously this movie does take place after Endgame, and it really has a lot to do with the fallout after what happens in Endgame. But when you go to the marketing, you go to that first teaser trailer, there is nothing that says this happens after Endgame. You could almost believe that it takes place right after Homecoming or at some other time before Infinity War. What do you think of that sort of issue of trying to market for a movie that we know is going to happen without trying to spoil that? Because obviously we know Black Panther 2 and Guardians of the Galaxy 3, those movies had all been greenlit prior to Endgame coming out. So how do you feel about this kind of like, we still have to be a company and have to market, but yet try also not to spoil our in-world events and, storylines?
I'm sure they had to do some planning for that, trying to figure out, okay, what can we actually show here and what can we not show? I'm pretty sure like the writers for Far From Home, so like Mark Webb? No, that's the previous. I can't remember the director. Oh, John Watts.
John Watts.
Yeah, that's Mark Webb was the Amazing Spider-Man.
Right.
So John Watts, he mentioned in an article that they were only told like 2 or 3 things maybe about what was happening in Avengers Endgame. So granted, there were a lot of things that were influenced by Endgame in this movie, I guess. So But at the same time, there were a lot of things that, I'm sure they had to plan, like, okay, we can only show this and this and this and this part. And so, obviously you got to market the movie somehow. And I remember actually being, they green-lit this movie. They didn't I don't think they had a name for it at the time.
No.
When Infinity War, or at least they hadn't released the name for it. But I remember being in the theater at that moment when Spider-Man, dusted, and I was like, "Oh, he's coming back!" Like they greenlit a movie.
yeah, exactly.
They had talked about there was going to be a Black Panther. I'm like, he's coming back. They're all coming back. We just didn't know the how. We didn't know how they were going to get to that point, and I think it's pretty brilliant on their part that they didn't give an exact timeline as to when this movie was happening. And I'm sure that was a lot of Marvel's planning. They've got the masters when it comes to planning, and showing what they want you to see. Like, trailers that have completely fake footage in it. Stuff that's meant to throw you off. So they were strategic about that. It's like, okay, so we can't give them any sort of a timeline. Let's only show them this, this, and this. And anything else we show later. And I remember when they actually released that first footage, the trailer for Far From Home, after Endgame came out, they had to specifically put a spoiler warning. They had Tom Holland was like, listen, if you haven't seen Endgame yet, don't watch this trailer.
Right.
So,
which, have you ever seen that before? I haven't.
Nope, have not. But I mean, Avengers Endgame was such a huge cultural event that, it was kind of setting a precedent for, having to do something like that. So yeah, they have brilliant planning, marketing strategy over there, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, it definitely worked out because if I'm reading this right, it's grossed so far $852 million worldwide, which makes it the third most successful Spider-Man film so far, and the fourth highest growing film of 2019. So, I mean, obviously, I knew it wasn't going to make Endgame type money.
Yeah.
Because it's not, it's not this culmination of like 10 years of films and this massive storyline they've been building to. But the fact that it's made $852 million worldwide already just says, like, wow, that's a lot of money. And of course, there's already a sequel in development to follow up Far From Home. That's not going to surprise anyone.
Yeah, absolutely. And the fact that they released this movie again the week of a holiday, and it's still like no sweat. They're like, nope, it's all good. We're still going to make our money. And they did.
Yep. I mean, it's just one of those things where that it's going to do it. It's just a matter of time, right?
Yep, absolutely.
So let's now let's put the spoiler alert warning on. From this point on, we're going to talk about things that are going to spoil Spider-Man Far From Home. We're going to talk about some characters, some character development. We're going to talk about things that will be crucial to the plot. So if you haven't seen it yet, you have been warned. Oh, okay. So Mark, spoiler warnings in effect. Now we're going to talk about things. Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio. What did you think of his casting?
Well, Jake Gyllenhaal is an incredible actor. He's shown his chops going from everything to, movies like Bubble Boy, to like Jarhead and
October Sky.
Yeah. Oh, what was that recent sort of? It wasn't really an indie film, but shoot, my memory is terrible tonight. But basically, he's a very versatile actor, and of course, one of his best movies, I think, is the movie Donnie Darko. Absolutely love him in that movie. So it was great to finally have an actor like Jake Gyllenhaal in a Marvel role. What really threw me off when they started to push the marketing of this movie and being a comic book fan,
Uh-huh.
it really threw me off that, like, oh, Mysterio is a superhero. Like, what?
Yeah.
Like,
Because he's a villain.
Yeah, he's very much a villain.
In the comics, he's one of Spider-Man's, gallery of rogues, the Sinister Six.
Yeah, I was going to say, wasn't he in the Sinister Six?
Yeah, Mysterio is he's a trickster. He's this con man. He manipulates basically like images and whatnot. Like he illusions, and they're pushing him as a hero in this movie. And I kind of went, wait a minute, how? Which is very, very interesting because they had this brilliant moment where they bring it Quentin Beck in, who plays Mysterio, and he basically comes in and says that he is from a different reality, that he's from like Earth 833 or something like that.
Yep.
And then of course, like Peter Parker latches onto the fact like, oh, there is a multiverse, which we got this whole idea of the multiverse really in Avengers Endgame, talking about all the different kind of strands of reality that could be followed if the Infinity Stones aren't put back into a certain order and put back at the exact same time. It could cause these branches in reality, and the idea of a multiverse was brought there. And so I think it was really smart writing, because people that are watching this movie are going to have seen Endgame, are going to understand the idea of a multiverse. And then Peter also recognizes that.
Yeah.
And so it felt like a really great way to be like, oh, hey, in this world, in the multiverse, Mysterio is a good guy.
Yeah.
He's not a bad guy. And I thought that was a great way to bring that character in. But then, Mark, something happens.
Sure enough, something happens.
There is that twist.
Yeah, I had read a lot of articles when they first talked about him being a hero and all sorts of stuff, and I'm like, yeah, but Quentin Beck is a liar.
Right?
And
Exactly.
He's a trickster, and it's like, we're seeing through this. I have a feeling it's a lie, and then sure enough. And it's amazing. It's a testament to Jake Gyllenhaal's acting, because you can tell he's like trying to be this super serious superhero kind of guy. Like, oh, these elementals, they attacked my world and destroyed my world and killed my family. I am the superhero. And then, there's a turn, and you realize it's all a ruse. It's all, a complete sham. Quentin Beck is the guy that developed the barf technology, which is hilarious. Which was introduced, I believe, in Civil War, right?
Yes.
Okay. With the whole scene where Robert Downey Jr. or Tony Stark is kind of has this whole setting where it's a younger Tony Stark with his parents in some fancy room in their house, and then it turns out it's all an illusion. It's all fake.
Right.
And so this is called the barf technology, and Quentin Beck supposedly developed this technology, and was an employee of Stark's, and basically Tony repurposed it for something else, and then fired Quentin Beck, and so this is the revenge story.
Yeah, with a bunch of disgruntled former Stark Industries employees.
Yes, absolutely. I was reading an article, and I believe it's on Reddit, where it mentions, like, I think Tony Stark is probably the greatest villain of the MCU, because he ticked off so many people in the MCU. Like, everybody that he's ever faced has all been mad at him. They've all been disgruntled people. And so it's hilarious. It's just one more group of people looking to destroy Tony Stark's legacy and leave him in the dust, especially. And in this case, they're trying to be a better superhero than Iron Man was.
Right. And this group is also trying to use the technology to buddy up to Spider-Man so they can basically orchestrate a heist to get Edith, which is this AI that basically controls all this like military drones and weapon systems that Tony left behind for Peter Parker, for Spider-Man, because he didn't trust him to it. But I love what Edith stands for. Edith, EDITH, stands for Even Dead, I'm the Hero.
That's such a Tony Stark thing.
Which is so Tony Stark. But Peter like completely buys into this illusion and realizes that Quentin should be the one, and he gives it to him, and then they're able to use Edith to like perpetuate even more of a hoax upon the entire world.
Yep.
It's this great turn of like, we're going to try to sell you and try to fake out the comic book nerds like we are with the whole idea of a multiverse, which we are going to, a lot of people are going to, kind of fall for, and take what's traditionally been a villain and try to turn that character around so people would be supportive of it and think, oh, Jake Gyllenhaal and Mysterio could be, a new hero going forward. No, it's not. It's all a big ruse. It's great writing. Figuring that it's a heist type of movie on the villain's part is great. Mm-hmm. But I gotta say, the visuals in this movie, when they're using Mysterio's, the barf technology and using Edith with all of that, are some of the best visuals I've seen in any MCU movie.
Yeah.
I mean, I just love the fact that like they had complete control of this environment, this kind of virtual reality, and they could change things at a moment's notice, and Peter could not see through it and was just struggling. And I really, really thought that was done extremely well. It made me feel very satisfied with that kind of interpretation of Mysterio's ability or powers, we'll say.
Yeah, it's a very MCU version of telling Quentin Beck's backstory.
Yeah.
It fits very well into the Marvel Cinematic Universe, for sure. So I like the way that they did it. And he ended up being a villain, so works out for the comic book fans too.
My one of my complaints though, Mark, about this whole Quentin Beck Mysterio is that we probably are not going to get another movie with Jake Gyllenhaal as Mysterio in it, which is one of my problems with the MCU right now, is that we can get some really, really cool villains like Mysterio, like Hela from Thor Ragnarok, and they're only in one film. And then we're probably not going to get to see him again unless we get crazy time travel, shenanigans. And I don't know, maybe Jake Gyllenhaal only signed a one-picture deal, and they only wanted to use him this, but like, knowing that for the last 10 years we have seen this build-up for the Thanos storyline and for the, Infinity Gauntlet series, basically, like, I'm expecting that we're not just going to have these little solo movies over and over and over again with single villains, that they're going to have some sort of overarching story again, because that really helped solidify the direction that the entire MCU is going. Sure. So I know that this is technically the last movie in the phase 3 of the MCU, and whatever is going to be the next movie that's going to come out will be the start of phase 4. And that's maybe a better place to start picking up hey, now we're going to start telling a different overarching story.
Sure.
But I honestly thought it would have been cool if they would have started laying the foundation in this movie for that.
Well, they kind of did, if you think about it. If you remember the post-credit scene, the second one at the very end, where it's revealed that, surprise, not appearances can be deceiving, like they talked about in the movie, and it turns out that this whole time you've seen Nick Fury and Maria Hill throughout the movie, and it's not actually them. It's the Skrulls who we met in Captain Marvel.
Yeah.
So it's Talos and another Skrull, and they've been basically pretending to be Fury and Hill this whole time, and Fury is completely off-world altogether in this huge ship, basically, looking at
taking
this
a break.
Taking a break, but he's on this huge ship in space, and he says, time to get back to work or something like that. Now, in the Marvel Comics universe, there is an intergalactic version of S.H.I.E.L.D., and it's called S.W.O.R.D. And so I feel like we're laying the groundwork here. Fury's going intergalactic. He's seen just how much of a threat people from outer space can be, and so he's trying to develop, since especially S.H.I.E.L.D. has been dissolved, it's no more.
Right.
Especially when they found out they had a bunch of Hydra in the whole society. So he's basically starting an intergalactic version of S.H.I.E.L.D., and which I'm assuming would be S.W.O.R.D. So we're starting to lay the groundwork here, at least in little ways. Obviously we don't have an overarching, threat yet, but this was meant more to be, honestly, I think, the palate cleanser movie. After, the heavy stuff that happened in Endgame. But I still think there are some little things here that are laying the groundwork. And, of course, the first post-credits scene, which was awesome.
Yeah.
I know we're kind of jumping around. But J.K. Simmons, man.
Yes. J. Jonah Jameson.
Yeah. They got him back as more of like a... I believe there's like this conspiracy theory kind of like web talk show guy. I believe his name is Alex Jones. He's just like crazy, kooky kind of conspiracy theory kind of person, and they very much played J. Jonah Jameson like that, instead of him being the main guy for the newspaper, the Daily Bugle. Newspaper companies are kind of, they're not as prevalent as they used to be. It's more about web media, and so this makes sense for this point in time for the MCU, for this version of J. Jonah Jameson, and I really hope that continues to play out in the MCU and specifically Spider-Man's world for sure. And he basically reveals this video where Mysterio outs Peter as Spider-Man.
Right. The interesting thing about that too, Mark, is that in the comics, J. Jonah Jameson also has like this, like, really despises Spider-Man. He really views Spider-Man as a villain, and
he's a menace.
He's a menace, and he tries to sell papers basically using kind of that whole kind of spin on it, which is definitely the way that this looks like it's going to go. And they basically gave J. Jonah Jameson a reason to believe that, because it appears, based on what Mysterio leaves behind, that Spider-Man kills him, and the way the footage is edited. And because of that, like, it's going to lend credibility to J. Jonah Jameson's character. And why he's going to view Spider-Man that way. And it also puts Spider-Man in this great place storytelling-wise, where he's not necessarily going to be this just like easily beloved local, hero, that he's now going to be kind of, heavily involved with the Avengers and whatever else is going to happen. But he's also going to be despised by a lot of people in New York City due to AKA hashtag fake news. So I thought that was a brilliant writing. I thought it was great. I love the fact that they bring back J.K. Simmons, who plays J. Jonah Jameson in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man trilogy. It's the first MCU character that's being brought back that was played by one actor and then the same actor in the MCU in any of the things. I think that's great. I really did feel like this movie had a lot of closer ties to a lot of comic book Spider-Man source material, more so than Spider-Man Homecoming did. So I mean, you've got like the villains of like Hydra Man and Molten Man and Sandman, which were all kind of basically like the elementals that were in this movie. And so I thought that was really good. Tom Holland for me is just killing it as Spider-Man.
Yep.
I think he's been the best Spider-Man so far.
Oh, absolutely. He's very much, high school Spider-Man. What the original comics were to start out with. He was the stories are more interesting when he's in high school because he's having to deal with all these teenager type problems, as he does in this movie. With going on this big class trip to Europe, and he's really crushing on MJ, Zendaya's character, and he's trying to sort of make things happen with that. Very very teenager stuff, all while having to deal with like superhero saving the world type stuff. So it's very relatable and fun to watch. So he's very relatable as a very high school type character.
Yep. I thought he did great. I love the fact that Jon Favreau's, Happy Hogan had a bigger role in this film because he had a good sized role in Homecoming, and I just thought that was great. And it's kind of that carryover in the tie between the existing Iron Man stuff and Spider-Man. It kind of helps cement that link even further. Mm-hmm. And of course, Spider-Man's struggling because Tony Stark meant the world to him, and Tony Stark is now gone, and he's struggling with that. And you can see that it's emotionally taking a toll on him, and he does not want to be who Nick Fury wants him to be. I mean, he's ghosting Nick Fury.
Yep.
Because he does not want to have that kind of responsibility because it's just too much for a kid. Yeah. But I think he ultimately kind of comes to the realization that he's not a kid and he is an Avenger and he is Spider-Man and he needs to do what no one else can do.
Yeah, he's stepping into his responsibility.
Yeah. So I thought it was great. A couple other things like the J.B. Smoove as one of the teachers, Julius Dell, that's like the chaperone. I mean, I know J.B. Smoove is a comedian, but basically this part was written specifically for him by the writers.
Oh yeah.
And they wanted it, to highlight his, humor and whatnot, and give him something else to do. And then, of course, they brought back Martin Starr, who was the decathlon teacher from the first film, and he plays a really good part. There's comedy there. There's comedy with his buddy Ned and his now girlfriend on their vacation, Betty. Just some of the stuff that they did was great, while also still. It was lighthearted and fun, but we also still had the really heavier, dealing with the loss and death of Tony and dealing with, this idea of responsibility. I felt like they married that kind of combination really, really well in this movie. I know other movies haven't always been that way, where they try to balance the light with kind of the heavier stuff to kind of mixed results. I thought this one did really, really well at that.
Yeah, there's some pretty subtle, heavy stuff in this as well. Even in some of the lesser characters, I know Flash Thompson was in Homecoming. Obviously, he was in this movie as well. It's always hilarious to see his part. Just being the real jerk bully kind of guy. But just seeing the funny ways that they tend to use him. But there's some pretty heavy stuff. The scene where Peter first puts on the Edith glasses, basically, I believe you find out that his dad has gone AWOL. Basically, he comes from a very rich family. His dad has been, I guess, really sick, and his dad has gone AWOL. Yeah. From the text messages you see flash up when Peter's looking around at everybody's text messages and stuff. And then at the end of the movie, when they come back from Europe and they're getting picked up at the airport, and you see Flash come up to his driver and you hear him say, "I'm guessing Mother couldn't come," and the guy kind of shakes his head
right.
They're kind of sort of projecting almost like a Harry Osborn type stuff,
kinda
on Flash Thompson. So that's certainly interesting. I don't know if they'll ever introduce, the Osborns or not in the MCU. But there was some pretty sad stuff going on with Flash, even though he was kind of some of the comic relief in the movie.
So it's interesting that you bring up the Osborn stuff. Originally, I know when they talked about doing these movies, they talked about doing kind of like Harry Potter and having each movie cover a separate year of school. Mm-hmm. It's like, Homecoming could be like his freshman year, and this one could be his sophomore year. And I don't know that they've necessarily done that, but we're in a place now where we're going to get another Spider-Man movie. Mm-hmm. So the first one we got Falcon, and Falcon's, a respectable villain from Spider-Man's, Sinister Six, right? His gallery of rogues, if you will, all the villains. I mean, Spider-Man has a ton of villains. Then in this film, we get Mysterio, and Mysterio's a big villain. But obviously, some of the biggest villains, the biggest villain, obviously, is Green Goblin. Mm-hmm. And then also Doc Ock is a massive villain. Now, granted, both of those were done in Sam Raimi's Spider-Man movies.
Yeah, I feel like they're kind of trying to steer clear of that.
Right, and we got Electro in, the Andrew Garfield, and then we also got Lizard as well. And we also got the Rhino too, which
we won't talk about that.
Yeah. Paul Giamatti is the Rhino. I mean, just whatever.
I killed you, spider.
Yeah. But I do think that there is this possibility that they could introduce, the Osborns. They could bring in Norman Osborn. They could bring in Harry, because if they do another movie and he's still in school, it could be one of these things where Harry comes and it's his senior year and Peter's senior year, and Peter befriends him, and it could start something to go down that road. Also, if they did that, Norman Osborn and the Green Goblin could be a villain that could continue on more than a single movie.
Sure. Absolutely.
And I think that would be good. I just don't know how much Sony's going to want to do that, because they had him in they had him in the first movie they did, and then they kind of had the Hobgoblin in the third movie.
Yeah.
So I don't know if they're really going to want to do that. And I did think that they did a really great job of the Norman Osborn Green Goblin in that first movie. Mm-hmm. So I don't know.
I really hope that they do something with, and I've read, you can tell I do a lot of reading. I read an article about, what if the Osborns purchased Avengers Tower in New York.
Yeah.
As obviously they're not there anymore. So that would be an interesting development, that they build Oscorp based on that building. So stuff like that. But yeah, I totally see what you're talking about. They could build up to him being the big bad. For sure.
I don't know. I also heard something that maybe they could introduce Reed Richards as buying the Avengers Tower.
Oh, yeah, the Fantastic Four, for sure.
Yeah, I mean, not Sony, but Marvel, Disney does own that now because they're part of Fox, and so they could bring that stuff in. There's just a lot of different ways they could go. I am curious, though, to see where it does go. So, Mark, looking at this kind of on a, overall, how do you think this movie fits into the MCU for you? Where do you rank this? Where do you put this? Where does this fit for you?
I'd say probably slightly above middle of the road. And that's not to say it was a bad movie. It was a very good movie. I very much enjoyed it. But in terms of trying to rank it, it'd probably be in the lower 10. If that makes sense, 5 to 10, something like that.
Yeah, I think for me, it's definitely above the halfway mark of all the movies.
Yeah,
but it's not. It's not cracking the top 5.
Yeah, for sure.
And that's not saying it's a bad movie, because I really did enjoy it. It has a 90% approval rating on Rotten Tomatoes. It's done well. It's gotten good reviews. It's well liked. But can can you slot this above Civil War and Winter Soldier and, some of those other, Guardians of the Galaxy, things that like were really big standout moments. Like, this is a great movie, but it's not like on that level where it's going to stand out.
Yeah, honestly, this is like I said earlier. This movie was meant to be the epilogue to the whole Infinity Saga after Endgame, and it's meant to be a palate cleanser. And I think it did its job. It was very much a palate cleanser, very much in the same vein as John Watts's sort of tone of the very teenagery type vibe. Very much in that same tone, and like I said, it's just supposed to be a palate cleanser, and it did its job.
I agree. I think so. So Mark, let's wrap this up. Let's ask the question of the week, and then this is what I want to ask for question of the week here. MCU, we've now officially wrapped up Phase 3. It's done. We're kind of putting a bow on it. Mm-hmm. What is the one film that you're looking forward to the most in Phase 4?
Oh, goodness. Man, they could go anywhere with it. I'm excited to see Guardians 3. And gosh. I'm excited to see what they do with Black Widow as well. Now she's getting her own film. I would like to see them pull in the franchises that they just purchased, like Fantastic Four. They probably won't touch X-Men for a while. I could be wrong about that, and that would be amazing. But having the Fantastic Four done right would be amazing.
Yep, I agree.
But those are the big ones. I'm excited to see, we've got San Diego Comic-Con this weekend. So,
yes, we do.
Yeah, so hoping to get some, I don't know if they'll release the complete roadmap. I don't know, but hopefully we'll get some ideas as to where they're going to go with it.
I'm looking ahead at Phase 4 of the things we know about. We know there's going to be a Black Panther movie, a Black Widow movie, a Guardians of the Galaxy 3. We know we're going to get another Spider-Man, although that'll probably be at least 4 years out is my guess.
They confirmed there's a fourth Thor movie coming.
There is going to be another Thor movie. That is true. I think I'm with you, is that from the things I know about, I want to see Guardians of the Galaxy 3, or what I'm probably going to call until it arrives as Guardians of the Galaxy 3.
Yep. Mm-hmm.
I think I'm probably most excited for that. However, if Disney decides to bring in either Fantastic Four or X-Men into Phase 4, then that immediately jumps to the top of my list.
Yeah.
Because I think we've never really seen Fantastic Four done right, and it would be great to bring it in. And there's a space right now for Reed Richards and Sue and Johnny and the Thing. Like, you could do that, and there's already a space there. There's some openings. We've had some deaths in the MCU, and something like that could fit in really easy. If you're going to bring in the X-Men, you're going to have to bring them in from a multiverse aspect, in my opinion. There's no way you tell a story and say basically they've been here all along, but they basically just sat out all the events. That doesn't make any sense whatsoever.
Nope.
I don't think we see the X-Men for a while. I think it's going to take a while to figure out how to bring that together, and get some sort of a crossover of, like Avengers versus X-Men or something. I don't know. Yeah. But I'm going to say Guardians of the Galaxy is the thing I'm looking forward to the most, unless they bring in Fantastic Four or X-Men, and then those immediately hit the top of my list.
Sure.
So, with that being said, Super Friends, we want to hear from you. What are you looking forward to the most in Phase 4 of the MCU? You can let us know at all the normal places. You can submit an email, which is forwardofnerd@gmail.com. You can get us on Facebook, facebook.com/forwardofnerd, Twitter @forwardofnerd, we're on Instagram, forwardofnerd, or you can even dial in the voicemail number, which is 801-477-7687. and we'll read your answers next week. Marc, thanks so much for coming back on. I'm going to roll out the red carpet for you. Tell me and the Super Friends where you can be found on social media, the Good Morning Guys podcast, all that stuff.
Yeah, so it's always great to talk with you, Spencer, for sure. It's always a great time. You can find me at Musique829 on Twitter. You can also find the Good Morning Guys podcast wherever podcasts are available. We are on Twitter at the GMG Podcast. We're also on Facebook as well. We have our own Discord server as well. We post links to that all the time. And we also have a YouTube page as well. So pretty much anywhere, just search the Good Morning Guys or at the GMG Podcast.
Perfect. Thanks, Marc. Well, from all of us here at the Fortress of Nerditude to all of you out there, wherever you may be, may the Force be with you. Always.